We think it is unethical and broken for tech companies to steal people's copywritten artwork and train models and derive value from it without permission and without compensation.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Founders in LA podcast. I'm your host Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight through a product lens on some of the exceptional founders we have as part of the LA community in an unedited, one-take organic conversation. With us today is Matthew Adell. Thanks for coming by the studio, Matthew.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited for your story. I think this is going to be a great one, so thank you for coming down. But first, a word from our sponsors. Founders in LA is brought to you by Nearshore. Nearshore is a trailblazer in nearshore outsourcing and staff augmentation. With over 15 years of experience offering exceptional Latin American software development, data, product, and design talent for U.S. projects, Nearshore has revolutionized the way companies scale their teams. They stand apart with 50% female leadership, are trusted by companies large and small, and have been helping U.S. customers grow since before nearshoring was cool. Discover how Nearshore can power your tech goals and help you stay lean while scaling fast. Learn more at www.nearshore.com. That's www.nearsure.com. We're also brought to you by United Club. United Club is a co-working space that sets itself apart. With locations in El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, and Hermosa, United is where creativity flourishes. Unlike traditional offices, they provide an inspiring environment where ideas can thrive and businesses can grow. With United, there's no hidden fees, flexible terms, options for dedicated offices, and unlimited access to conference rooms, a photo studio, this podcast studio, plus standard 3D printers, and 24/7 access at any of their locations. They're local champions who support neighborhood businesses, open their event spaces to nonprofits, and celebrate art, music, and culture. Join United Club and experience co-working like never before. Learn more at United Club at www.unita.club. That's www.unita.club. Our guest today is Matthew Adell. Matthew is the co-founder and chief operating officer at SOMMS.AI. Matthew, can you give us a 30-second description of SOMMS?
Sure. We think it is unethical and broken for tech companies to steal people's copywritten artwork and train models and derive value from it without permission and without compensation. So we've built a custom enterprise solution that allows rights holders, record labels, distributors, artists, producers, writers, publishers to use their own material to create their own models and create their own generative AI value that they can control and monetize effectively.
Wow. So in this age, and as we're recording this, it's still kind of early in the age of Gen AI. Models are training on kind of black boxes right now, which is especially difficult and challenging for content creators and artists, because if their work appeared in the internet, prior to whenever that person was pushing the button, there's a good chance that it was part of the training model, and they don't have any real way to attribute their work or get credit for what they've done. Mm-hmm. And so you're building LLMs for content creators to be able to have control over how that can then be generated into new works.
Exactly. We believe that there's really exciting stuff coming with Gen AI. There's no good Gen AI results without great music to train on. And we believe very strongly that generative AI should not break the music ecosystem, that people should be compensated for the value they create, and that copyright is important. And it's actually worse than what you just suggested, which is if your thing was on the internet. Okay. Your thing doesn't even have to have been on the internet. These companies have gone to the dark web and grabbed massive volumes of archival copywritten material that was never on the public web. It's much more nefarious than that.
Wow. So it's not even fair use public property that are being trained, but it's just potentially anything that's ever been created. And then challenges of the music industry. Yeah, I mean, dedicating so much time and energy into building your thing, honing your craft, creating something of value that somehow has stood above all the other people out there who are trying to do it. And then that could be very quickly appropriated and mashed up, and you lose the credit for all the effort you put into it.
Yeah, and a big tech company, which would have zero valuation without your work and millions of other people's work, is going to make all the money.
Yeah, it's like garbage in, garbage out. So in order to have a good end result, you really do need to have the good things at the beginning.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
It sounds like what you're helping do is provide like an outlet or an enablement or empowerment for the actual musicians to own what's going to happen to it.
Exactly. Not just the musicians, any rights holder, anyone involved in that value chain who controls music or the written songs in some way can participate. Our basic message is to our clients: don't license your material to one of the big bucket ocean models. You will lose control of your music. You will never know how or when it's used in the future. There's no taking it back from that company once your business relationship with them is over. We believe that the labels should be building their own models, and we're proving that out now, and license access to those models so that they can retain control over their incredibly valuable IP.
That's interesting. So you'll be licensing the model out, and if I caught that correctly, you're also working on attribution as well.
Attribution is a key piece of what we do. So first, we would not license someone's models out. They can, and we can provide an API that allows it. We're not a marketplace. We're not bundling content, and we're not doing biz dev deals between different IP holders. We're making it possible for them to do business with each other that way, in a way that has not been possible before. I've been in digital music long enough that I remember when there were no download stores. And I remember when download stores were first introduced, the labels had hoped at that time that they could actually create what were effectively cloud banks of their own content that they controlled. And so when you would buy a track from iTunes, it wouldn't go get the track from iTunes and download it to you. It would go get it from the label.
Oh, interesting.
And the labels like this idea because they could count how many downloads. Otherwise, there's no doubt that there's loss in that. And it never was able to come to fruition. It really didn't make sense. The tech companies had too much power, and I think the labels were in a very difficult position at that time because they were desperately trying to climb back out of the file sharing disaster of the previous decade. But now the labels have and deserve the leverage to not have all their IP stolen. And given that intellectual property, especially entertainment intellectual property, is the #1 export in the United States, I would think we as a country and community would want to protect that IP as well.
Yeah, and it feels like things are are just moving at such an incredible pace. And I know we've been saying that for since the beginning of 2023, but every update that comes out in the last couple of weeks, now you can have photorealistic movies that are up to a minute based on natural language. That's all coming from somewhere. And so
it's all coming from existing television shows and movies and books and home movies and stuff people uploaded to YouTube. And who knows, it's probably training on your Ring camera data as well. Who the heck knows what video is in there. What we do is we also create an attribution transparency timeline. So traditionally right now, people claim that there's no way to tell you when you get an image from Midjourney to tell you which assets inside the training data are responsible for creating that image. It's simply not true that that's not possible to do. It's just not advantageous for certain people to do it that way.
Right.
So we have a technology that needs to be present during the training and present during the generation, but in real time will generate effectively a collaboration report telling you this asset had a 16% influence on the generation. This asset had a 5% influence on this generation. And then what you have is downstream revenue split report for when that generation gets monetized.
And it seems like you're very deep into the music industry. From the outsider perspective, I just kind of recall there were lawsuits about like, hey, you know, this band had to pay this other band because the riff was too close, and like there were royalties. There was like
Sure.
back royalties.
Happens all the time.
I want to say like maybe Oasis was one of those examples.
Oh, it happens to it happens all the time. First Led Zeppelin record is, almost every track went through that process.
Certainly in Beastie Boys.
Yes, I mean there's interpolation there, which is sort of like this sounds like my work, and then there's sampling, which is that is a piece of my work inside your work, which are two different things. Sampling is a little even more clear cut because you don't have to make the case it sounds like something; it simply is that thing.
Is there a new category that's kind of opening up now, given the generative aspect of it?
I think there is. The reality is that anything Gen I does is effectively a mashup of assets inside its training set data.
Right.
It's not making new things. It's making new combinations of things. And I've lost my train of thought.
Well, we were talking about how like previous there was samples of songs or chord progressions that could be attributed back, but this idea is there a new category of ways that things are being used. So it's in this kind of LM world where you take all the information that's in the training data and you mash it up, and to your point, you're right, you're not generating new everything. It's just taking all these other things and mashing them up in new interesting ways, but they're almost maybe like micro opportunities for attribution, like almost micro attribution, because if they're taking all your old songs and creating a new song out of it, they're there somewhere.
Oh yes,
at some level,
and that's exactly the report we generate with each generation. Technically, our technology will work with images and pharmaceuticals and other models as well. But as you likely know, the music business is actually highly regulated, and there's a whole bunch of rules about how playing music in public is supposed to work, and people are supposed to get remunerated and things like that. And so we felt that music was the right place to bring our attribution technology because the music business really needs it. The music business can't play in this sandbox without attribution.
How did you find yourself as a part of this? So again, it's Gen AI. It's music attribution, I guess, has been around, but in this particular flavor of it, it's still relatively new. Mm-hmm. How did you find yourself helping found this company?
It's about a year and a half ago. I had determined that I really wanted to work in some way in generative AI, that I thought that was the next thing that was really going to interest me and capture my attention. And I also have just a long history of working in early new digital techniques in music and making sure that those techniques and businesses don't break the music ecosystem, support making more good music. And so I also knew that this area had that copyright problem. That challenge of how do you make this work for the people who actually make music. And I met a bunch of companies and was thinking about taking a consulting gig with one of them when a friend said, you've got to meet these guys I know in Canada. And I met 3 guys who'd already been working together for a handful of months, but 2 of them had been working together on generative AI music for over a decade. Okay. These guys are old school geniuses. And then the third guy, our CEO, is an infrastructure entrepreneur par excellence. And I immediately could tell that this was the right team of people to get this done because AI has huge infrastructure challenges. Right. The science of being good at AI is new techniques are still being developed. It's not like web where you can hire a technician. You really need scientists who are continuing to invent ways of doing this. And then the 2 AI guys are musicians. And they knew and mentioned in our first conversations that they believed that the market needed attribution. And over the next few months, we developed a technique that works. And people have started using it.
So you have artists who are starting to try to...
So we have labels. So,
labels.
it's interesting. As a startup, you'd think you usually start trying to attract sort of mid-tier customers, and then you're happy if you get lower-tier customers in terms of volume or the revenue you might get from them. We're in the interesting position of we're already working with the largest companies in the world. So we've gone right to the top of the biggest labels in the world, the biggest publishers in the world, the biggest distributors in the world. We really want to, we built artist-focused services for individual artists, and we think we will deliver those through their labels, through their publishers, to the artists. And especially as costs come down, this will be more effective for artists. Right now, it's still expensive to train a model. Right. And it's cheaper than it was last year, and it's going to be cheaper again next year. And there's going to be an ROI inflection point where it makes sense for individual artists to use it. But I would expect for the next year or two, it's going to be corporations who are the primary customers who may deliver custom models to their artists through these systems. But it's going to be the big companies that are paying for it. It's very expensive.
That's fantastic. There's a couple threads I want to pull there. One is it sounds the building of a team is so critical in an early stage startup, and it sounds like you've found the pairing of a CEO, industry expert, and then these engineers who also have a shared passion, who understand it as musicians and are trying to solve it. It sounds like that's kind of one of the rare formulas to come together. So I guess having done your homework, you're saying I want to go in this area, and you were searching for the right place. That makes it easier to find the right team.
Yes, and to find the right goals. I didn't meet anyone else who was concerned about music makers. These guys were, we're concerned about the right stuff. And it's not just that I'm being protective of the music making ecosystem. My thesis and our thesis, Sean, James, Nico, we all believe that it is going to be difficult or impossible for a big company to come in and steal all the music and monetize the music using a model. It's going to be harder for them to do than it was with text and with images. And that's going to be great for our business.
So you mentioned this briefly. I'm curious to hear more about how you got them. So your customers, you when you first started, you thought maybe we'd try to build for the artist, but then you got traction at the very top, which is a great place to start.
Yeah.
How did you get those first customers? How did you attract their attention? Or did you go to them? Did they come to you? Or how'd it work?
If I can sort of give you a big umbrella picture, because this is a really interesting question for music tech companies, period.
Right.
Frequently, VC doesn't want to touch you if, first off, it appears that there are only really like 10 big customers for your business in its entire history. And so if you can't get them, you're screwed. You have no business.
Right.
Or like many companies, they need licenses from the labels. They want to use the label's content for their own means. Spotify has a license, Apple has a license, Beatport has a license. And that's difficult for VCs to swallow because it's insanely expensive. It's tens of millions of dollars a year in advances.
Right.
And so our thesis was we're going to let people build themselves inside our infrastructure so that we don't have to license the content. It's their content. It's their music. They control it.
Okay.
So we're not advancing anybody. We're not trying to cut deals or resell their content. We're an enabling system, if you will. And I was very lucky to be able to do a lot of early interviews with potential customers because of my background and my resume and just having met tons of people, over the years. And so people I'd done business with before took pitch meetings. I was able to learn what they liked and what they didn't like. I was really lucky. I think I got honest feedback from people, which is pretty rare.
Right.
Most people don't give it, and most people certainly don't actually want it. But we got it, and it did cause us to change our strategy quite. We retooled for about 6 months after our first wave of interviews. And then we honed in on our strategy. We got attribution ready. And we had put out a press release in October alongside a manifesto, which is effectively our beliefs around how this system is supposed to work. And I have not made a single cold call to a potential target since we put out that release. Everyone is coming to us. It's insane. I've never experienced anything like it in my life.
sometimes when you hit the right place, right time, that just kind of happens. It's pulling you towards it. You have to keep knocking down every door.
Yeah.
Going back to the team building, and you're not this type of person. I know you don't like to toot your own horn, but it sounds like the ability to have that industry insider, the person who has the ability to take those phone calls, to listen to him, take it seriously. It feels like that is part of the key ingredients. You have a really quality CEO. You have the engineering team who has the passion and the understanding of it, but then without the ability to unlock doors, this idea of tapping your network as your first customer is a recurring theme that we've heard over and over again. Is one of the keys to success for early stage companies. I know you wouldn't like to toot your own horn, but it does sound like there's a lot of one of the key ingredients to the success of this is your ability to open those doors, to have those network connections, to have been in the industry, and people are trusting you and respecting your opinion enough to give you good feedback.
I absolutely, I will toot my horn a little bit, but there would have been, opening those doors would have been meaningless without this incredible technology.
Right.
Meaningless. It's my colleague Sean that put this team together. I have a piece of the building block of the Jenga puzzle of what we need, to do in order to do it. But you used an interesting word. We're in the business of trust. Beyond the fact that we're in the business of inventing this incredibly cool technology that continues to bring a lot of value to the music ecosystem, our partners have to trust us to keep their IP secure.
Right.
They have to trust us to deliver what we say we will deliver and not be in the background using other people's IP. And I don't think this is much horn tooting so much as just the reality of I've worked with all these labels before and have paid them on time and have not been notorious for stealing their content or what have you. And so that gave me an entry, right?
Yeah. I have to ask because it came up in a pre-podcast conversation, but you mentioned your days at Napster. Mm-hmm. Were you the Napster subscription era?
Legal Napster. I was only there after it was legal.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. Legal Napster, and it's another time in my career where the goal was to harness the power of what was going on in the digital space. For the good of music listeners and music creators.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were already that trusted, going back to the trusted voice. You were the person where it sounds very metaphorical, similar to parallel, I guess is the best way to describe it, is like of where we are today, where in the Napster world, they had this content, it was theirs, and all of a sudden it's totally out of their control. Mm-hmm. You were there to try to undo Pandora's box. Mm-hmm. And then, we come to this world of generative AI where it seems like it happened again.
Yes.
All right, Matthew's here and he's on the side of good again and trying to, put it back in the box so people can get paid for the work that they do.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully that's what people think. So far, it feels that way.
What's next? You mentioned, potentially starting with music, but there's definitely other areas where you can do it. It feels like movies is going to be quickly another very, pressing need to make sure that the generative movies won't just be stealing everyone else's stuff and chopping it up and serving it out again. Where do you guys look, or is it too soon? I know you.
I think it's too soon.
So soon.
We're confident our technology is transferable.
Yeah.
But film actually has a whole different set of attribution needs than music. A movie is actually owned by one company.
Okay.
Every movie you could name, if you wanted to license it, you only have to call one company.
Okay.
They may have other constituents they have to pay and permit, but there's one company. You want to use a piece of music. Let's say you wanted to use the new Beyonce single. You need permission from the record label. That's one company. And you need permission from every single music publisher that represents every single person who participated in writing that song. So that could be a dozen permissions you need to license the Beyonce track to put in a movie or what have you. So there's a level of complexity to music licensing that is not true of other medias, because other media is almost universally owned by one party.
Oh man, so it was really the passion for me. I'm thinking immediately, oh my gosh, well, why did you guys start with the hardest challenge you could solve in a startup? But it sounds like it was, how much did passion come into it, or like where's the decision to do this like very hard thing in a world where Gen A is relatively young, so there would be more lower hanging fruit than maybe 5 years from now.
I think it's because it's the path my colleagues were already on inventing. I
Yeah.
really joined their journey, but also we wanted to solve for music. I mean, we're music people.
You love music, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we had, as a startup, if we had to pivot and do other stuff, I'm always there for that. I'm there to make teams work and companies work. But we wanted to start here, and also we knew I had a sales channel. I couldn't open the same doors in film today.
Yeah.
I'd literally just stand in front of the Paramount lot and harass people on their way into work. That would be my technique. So I was lucky to have those ins. But really, the legal scaffolding around music is so complicated and so heavily regulated throughout the globe. Almost every modern nation has substantive regulations about music consumption and payments, that it was the medium that really required the most help.
When I think to where we are in the kind of the cycle of technology, of a new technology, I think what's an interesting part of what you guys are doing is, like, instead of going for the low hanging fruit, you guys went for a challenging one. So low hanging fruit, there could be tens of thousands of companies because it's so easy to do. It's still quick, but people are fighting for first to market. You guys did something from the passion. You guys decided, hey, I love music. I see there's a challenge. It's going to be hard, but if we solve this problem, it's going to be, there's very few people who can do this, what we're doing. But I can't help but keep back to like this kind of market founder fit, where just like, and maybe music is almost even in a unique position itself, because people will start a company because they love something, they're passionate about it, but music does feel like sometimes it's in another level of itself. I was just talking about a movie, Almost Famous, yesterday, and trying to describe how this person said they liked music. Oh, you're gonna love this movie because it's like a love letter to music. So you have this sometimes you just have people who love this thing so much. It's easy to take on a hard challenge and fight an uphill battle, but because it's part of that thing.
But honestly, we thought about building consumer products with interfaces, creative ways people could engage with Gen AI. And we actually decided that the easier path, the smarter path, was enterprise solutions. There's going to be 1 million interfaces. And some people are going to like one interface and some people are going to like another one. There's not going to be a winner-take-all interface in generative AI. And so I would much rather be a part of every business's AI solution and back-end it than hoping to win the interface lottery. But it's different than anything I've done before. I've never sold enterprise solutions before. My business has been working with these same big companies as my supply chain, and now they're my customer.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to another early stage founder who may be trying to break into enterprise? Is there anything you've learned that would be like helpful for them?
Yes. Don't undervalue what you're selling. We've had conversations about making sure that we haven't done that. I've seen other people do it. And if you're struggling to get customers in the door, it's not because of price, it's because of your offer. If your offer is good, someone will talk to you about price. I think that's significant. Also, trust. Another thing I learned is in enterprise business, don't build any products that you don't think you can get someone to pay at least $100,000 a year for. It's too small.
I've heard that elsewhere too. Yeah.
I got told that by a wise person. I've really taken it to heart.
I've heard 25,000 a month was the lowest they were willing to build something for. But.
That's really interesting. It's expensive to do what we do. Really, it's only the biggest companies that can afford to play in these sandboxes right now.
Yeah, but they also have the most to gain from attribution in this.
They have the most. They have their entire businesses to lose.
I'd love to almost end on that, but grounding this back in LA, but it seems like it's been LA very, very much throughout the pod. Matthew, you could have an interesting one. So what's your most LA moment? It could be tech related or not. It's just something we do on this podcast to ground it here.
Well, what I love the most about LA, and I don't think it's like a cute story, but is I get to see all of my favorite bands all the time. Beck is an artist I've seen probably more times than most any, and the ability to just go to the Largo, and see him with 200 other people, and he's just, making up his set list as he goes. That's a quintessentially Los Angeles experience that I would miss if I left. I just love that ability to go see things that are a big deal that I care about in small places. The other thing that is the most Los Angeles for me is my Gelsons. First off, every time I see a famous person, my brain says, "Oh, I went to high school with them," and then I'm like, "Oh no, I know them from Law and Order or something like that." And then, and my Gelsons is Celebrity Central. It's in the Los Feliz neighborhood, and during the pandemic, Ron Perlman was at the grocery store every time I was, like 5 times in a row, and I had to ask him to stop following me.
Those are fantastic. Matthew, I don't even know what to say. I love this town, love Beck, and we'll have to check out the Los Feliz Gelson if anyone's in LA looking to run this.
It also happens to be the location of the original Disney animation studios, so if you're a Disney person, it's fun to go there too.
Oh, so they're like hidden Mickey Mouses all over?
There's some plaques on the wall.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Matthew, for coming down and sharing what you're working on. It's really, really timely and important. So and especially in this town, such a world of music. So thank you so much for coming down.
It's really my pleasure. This was fun. This was super easy. It went by like that. I feel like it was just 2 minutes.
Try to keep it nice and casual. That's what we do. It
was perfect.
Thanks,
you, man.
Our guest again was Matthew Adell. He's co-founder and chief operating officer at SOMMS.AI. That's SOMMS.AI. Like to thank our sponsors one more time. So Nearshore, Unita, and ProdHub.ai, which is a new sponsor for us. Build better products with ProdHub.ai, where innovation meets efficiency. Automate your PRDs, fast track your story creation, and speed up your product team with a single platform. It's your co-pilot for product management. Discover more at ProdHub.ai. That's PRODHUB.ai. Like to thank you all again for listening to us, and if you like what you hear, please smash that subscribe button. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Founders in LA.